Alright. Warning. Matricide. Infanticide. Graphic crime scenes. Graphic descriptions of crimes. Andrea Yates is an American woman from Houston, Texas, who confessed to drowning her 5 children in their bathtub on June 20th, 2001. The case of Yates, who had exhibited severe postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, and schizophrenia leading up to the murders, placed the Monotone rules along with the irresistible impulse test for sanity under close scrutiny in the United States. At Yates' 2002 trial, Chuck Rosenthal, the district attorney in Harris County, asked for the death penalty. Yates was convicted of capital murder, but the jury refused the death penalty option. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. The verdict was overturned on appeal in light of false testimony by one of the supposed expert psychiatric witnesses. On July 26, 2006, a Texas jury in her retrial found that Yates was not guilty by the reason of insanity. She was consequently committed by the court to the high-security North Texas State Hospital in Vernon, where she received medical treatment and was a roommate of Dina Schlosser, another woman who committed infanticide by killing her infant daughter. In January 2007, Yates was moved to Kerrville State Hospital, a low-security state mental hospital in Kerrville, Texas. Andrea Yates was born Andrea Pia Kennedy in Houston, Texas, the youngest of the 5 children of Jetta Karen Kohler, a German immigrant, and Andrew Emmett Kennedy, whose parents were Irish immigrants. Yates suffered from bulimia and depression during her teenage years, and at age 17 spoke to a friend about suicide. Yates graduated from Milby High School in 1982. She was class valedictorian, captain of the swim team, and an officer in the National Honor Society. Yates then completed a 2-year pre-nursing program at the University of Houston and graduated from the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. From 1986 until 1994, Yates worked as a registered nurse at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. In September 1989, she met Rusty Yates, a NASA engineer, at the Sunscape Apartments in Houston. They soon moved in together and were married on April 17, 1993. Yates and her husband, a devout evangelical Christian, announced that they would, quote, seek to have as many babies as nature allowed, end quote. And bought a 4-bedroom house in Friendswood, Texas. Their first child, Noah, was born in February of 1994, just before Rusty accepted a job offer in Florida, causing them to relocate to a small trailer in Seminole. By the time of the birth of their 3rd child, Paul, they had moved back to Houston and purchased a GMC motorhome. Hold on a second. Following the birth of her 4th child, Luke, Yates' depression resurfaced. On June 16, 1999, Rusty found her shaking and chewing her fingers. The next day, she attempted suicide by overdosing on pills. Leading to her being hospitalized and prescribed antidepressants. Soon after her release, Yates begged Rusty to let her die as she held a knife to her neck. Once again hospitalized, she was given a plethora of medication, including including Halidol, an antipsychotic drug. Yates' condition improved immediately, and she was prescribed it upon her release. After this incident, Rusty moved the family into a small house for the sake of her health. She appeared temporarily stabilized. In July 1999, Yates had a nervous breakdown, which culminated into suicide attempts and 2 psychiatric hospitalizations that summer. She was subsequently diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Yates' first psychiatrist, Dr. Eileen Starbranch, testified that she urged her and Rusty to not have any more children, as it would guarantee future psychotic depression. They conceived their 5th and final child approximately 7 weeks after her discharge. Clearly, they weren't listening. Yates stopped taking Halidol in March 2000 and gave birth to their daughter Mary 9 months later. Now, I understand stopping the medication for life-saving reasons, like, pregnancy or whatever. But why she did not immediately go back on the prescription once her pregnancy was over, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me why she wasn't immediately put back on. Yeah. Yates seemed to be coping well until the death of her father on March 12, 2001. And she then stopped taking medication, mutilated herself, and stopped feeding Mary. She became so incapacitated that she required immediate hospitalization. On April 1st, 2001, Yates came under the care of Dr. Mohammed Saeed. She was treated and released. On May 3rd, 2001, she degenerated back into a near catatonic state and filled the bathtub in the middle of the day. She would later confess to police that she had planned to drown the children that day, but had decided against doing it then. Yates was hospitalized the next day. After a scheduled doctor visit, her psychiatrist determined she was probably suicidal and assumed she had filled the tub to drown herself. At the time of the murders, the Yates family was living in Houston, suburb of Clear Lake City. Yates continued under Dr. Saeed's care until June 20th, 2001, when Rusty left for her work, leaving her alone to watch the children against Dr. Saeed's instructions to supervise her around the clock. Rusty's mother, Dora Yates, had been scheduled to arrive an hour later to take over for Andrea. In the space of that hour, Andrea Yates drowned all 5 children. Yates started with John, Paul, and Luke, and then laid them on her bed. She then drowned Mary, whom she left floating in the tub. Noah came in and asked what was wrong with Mary. He then ran, but Yates soon caught and drowned him. She left him floating in the tub and laid Mary in John's arms in the bed. She then called the police, repeatedly saying she needed an officer, but refusing to say why. She then called Rusty and told him to come home immediately. Yates confessed to drowning her children. Prior to her second trial, she told Dr. Michael Wellner that she waited for Rusty to leave for work that morning before filling the bathtub because she knew he would have prevented her from harming them. After the murders, police found the family dog locked up. Rusty advised Wellner that it had normally been allowed to run free and was so when he had left the house, leading the psychiatrist to allege that she locked it in a cage to prevent it from interfering with her killing the children one by one. Rusty got a family friend, George Parnham, to act as her attorney. although the defense's expert testimony agreed that Yates was psychotic. Texas law requires that in order to successfully assert the insanity defense, the defendant must prove that they could not discern right from wrong at the time of the crime. In March 2002, a jury rejected the insanity defense and found Yates guilty. Although the prosecution had sought the death penalty, the jury refused that option. The trial court sentenced Yates to life imprisonment, and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice with eligibility for parole in 40 years. On January 6, 2005, a Texas Court of Appeals reversed the convictions because California psychiatrist and prosecution witness Dr. Park Dietz admitted that he had given mentally false testimony during the trial. God. In his testimony, Dietz had stated that shortly before the murders, an episode of Law and Order aired that featuring a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted of murder by reason of insanity. Suzanne O'Malley reported that no episode existed. Although Law and Order Criminal Intent did air an episode 2 years later based in part on Yates' case. On January 9th, 2006, Yates again entered pleas of not guilty by reason of insanity. On February 1st, 2006, she was granted release on bail on the condition that she be admitted to a mental health facility in Caryville, Texas. Although psychiatrists for both the prosecution and the defense agreed that Yates was severely mentally ill with one of several psychotic diseases at the time she killed her children, the state of Texas asserted that she was, by legal definition, aware enough to judge her actions as right or wrong. Despite her mental defect, the prosecution further implied spousal revenge as motive for the killings. Despite the conclusion of defense experts saying that there was no evidence to support such a motive. Because, what did they know? Although the original jury believed she was legally aware of her actions, they disagreed that her motive was spousal revenge. According to trial testimony in 2006, Dr. Saeed advised Rusty not to leave his wife unattended. However, Rusty began leaving her alone with the children in the afternoon and the weeks leading up to the drownings for short periods of time, apparently believing it would improve her independence, despite her doctor's instructions, because, he knows better, of course. Rusty had announced at a family gathering the weekend before the drownings that he had decided to leave Yates home alone for an hour each morning and evening so that she would not become totally dependent on him and his mother for her maternal responsibilities. Yates' brother, Brian Kennedy, claimed during a broadcast at CNN's Larry King Live that Rusty expressed to him in 2001 while transporting her to a mental treatment facility that all depressed people needed was a swift kick in the pants to get them motivated. Yates' mother expressed shock when she heard of Rusty's plan while at the gathering with them, saying that Yates was not stable enough to care for the children. She noted that Yates demonstrated she wasn't in her right mind when she nearly choked Mary by trying to feed her solid food. Rusty stated to the media that he was never told by the psychiatrist that Yates was psychotic, nor that she could harm the children, and that had he known that, he would never have had more children. If I'd known she was psychotic, we'd never have even considered having more kids. He told the Dallas Observer. However, Yates revealed to her prison psychiatrist, Dr. Melissa Ferguson, that prior to their last child, she had told Rusty that she did not want to have sex because Dr. Starbranch had said she might hurt her children. Rusty, she said, simply asserted his procreative religious beliefs, complimented her as a good mother, and persuaded her that she could handle more children. In August 2004, Rusty filed for divorce, stating that he and Yates had not lived together as a married couple since the day of the murders. The divorce was granted on March 17, 2005, after which Rusty began dating his second wife, Laura Arnold. They married on March 25, 2006, and had one son. Arnold filed for divorce in 2015. And that is the sad but true story of Andrea Yates and the death of her children. As I said, it's a very sad story. Thanks for hanging out with me. As always, be cautiously kind to others. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And make good choices. Have a wonderful day, guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.